There we go. All right, friends, thank you so much for coming by for another episode of the podcast. Today, we have another man behind this very cool project that we talked to with Alex Svetsky not too long ago, Satlantis. He goes by Jason Hodlers, aka Geeky Guy, which is one of my favorite usernames I've seen out there. Thank you so much for joining me, sir.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
So, there's a lot of different directions we could take this. I was recommended to you by our beautiful, wonderful friend Valerie, who is just anytime she said I need to talk to somebody, I immediately go for it. So this is the first time we've met and really talked. I followed you back on Nostr just a few days ago. So I want the backstory, man. Let's hear about Jason. Like, what is your story of where you came from, how you got into Bitcoin? I love the FedEx aspect of it. I think that's such a classic. Everyone has a different flavor of like they had some dumb fiat job where they found a way to start learning about Bitcoin while doing that. So,
Mhm.
uh, fill us in, man. Give us the backstory here.
Well, first of all, I'll say that maybe not all fiat jobs are dumb. I know you didn't mean that really, but excuse me. I mean, there's a purpose for all of them. We need our packages delivered. I mean, we're filming this right after Christmas, and I think we're all grateful for a lot of packages having been delivered. For me, though, it was like I was learning so much. I had a podcast going in my ear or several times a day, and I learned so much, and I wanted to give back. I wanted to do something, but I would be exhausted at the end of every day. Just come home and do some family things, with my wife and kids, and like dinner and stuff. And we do like a scripture study thing as a family as well every evening, and then wrap up, clean up, and go to bed, and start early the next morning. Wake up at like 5 a.m. to go get on my truck again and rinse and repeat. And then Saturdays I was just like just relaxing so much. Saturdays and Sundays, going to church and stuff on Sundays, and so there was no time for me to write a book, start my own business, put a meetup together, Bitcoin meetup, go to a meetup, any of that. That is until I had a medical situation in late 2021, where like August, September, I guess, 2021, where I couldn't drive for FedEx anymore. And so, God works in mysterious ways. When one door closes, another door opens. And so I use that time, of course, for looking for other work, but also in my a lot of spare time now, I went ahead and, well, first I attended a local, at the time, crypto meetup, even though I was a Bitcoin maxi, even then, in 2021, have been since, 2016, 17, somewhere like that. But I decided to just go see how it is, check it out. Maybe they'll just mention alts a little bit. No, it was awful. It was a special kind of meeting, and I left halfway through because I couldn't stand it. Um, but that told me, okay, after looking all over meetup.com and other websites looking for something in my area, I couldn't find it, so I went ahead and made the meetup I wanted. And I remember, actually, that's something that a lot of people who've created a lot of great things, Svetsky building Amber and Spirit of Satoshi and now Satlantis. um, One of my favorite authors, C.S. Lewis, Christian author, he said that every single book he wrote, whether it's Mere Christianity or the Narnia series or Great Divorce or a bunch of others of my favorites, um, he always started by looking for it at the library. And when he couldn't find the book that would just scratch that itch there at the library, then he decided to write it himself. So it was the same kind of thing. I like writing. I'm sure I've written enough comments and replies to people on websites and stuff that I could have written a book with all that time, all that typing time. But I want to do something in person. I saw there was a big need for shaking people's hands, giving people hugs, and so, yeah, that's when I started looking into the meetup space. And then yeah, when I saw there wasn't one that was Bitcoin only, I decided to create my own Bitcoin chat with two T's, uh, and for Chattanooga, Tennessee. And
That's really
uh,
clever. I love
oh yeah,
it.
thanks. I'm a dad. It was like a perfect dad joke. Uh, so then I did that, and for the first 6 months or something like that, I'm not even sure how many months. It was me, my oldest son, who's now 17, was being going with me there as a moral support, and one other person, a different other person, would show up. Yeah, so it's persistent and consistent. Actually, never missed a month doing a meetup until actually a month or two ago. I had to go to El Salvador. So for about 3 years there, just doing it consistently. That way, it could be something that everyone could rely on and know it was happening. There's also another guy in my hometown who started setting up the same kind of thing, and so for a little while we were tag teaming it and kind of combined forces. He's since moved away out of state, so now it's all on me again. But yeah, so anyway, going back, I know we talked starting this whole rant about FedEx and there are great jobs out there that are very very needed. But yeah, I just wanted to give back in some way because I saw that this was such a the Bitcoin was such a great valuable thing. I don't mean like financially valuable. I mean just like so important, so vital to the future of the human race. If I could just do something small, even to give back to help other people learn what I had learned. There are many people who I learned from on my journey. Andreas Antonopoulos, before he started favoring Ethereum and stuff, but then Guy Swan was always in my ear while I was driving, and one guy, the One Vortex, he's on Twitter and Nostr, and
One of the true OGs. That was before
yeah, for
my
sure.
time. I wasn't even listening to him really.
Oh wow, yeah, yeah. I saw him on some things on YouTube, but also um, I would get on like message boards on other websites and stuff. I think marketwatch.com was one of them, and I would see him reply. He was actually the person who cued me in or clued me in to self custody and the private keys and stuff. And I was like, wait, what's this? Like, what is that? And I didn't have any idea about that. So he helped me go down that rabbit hole. And yeah, so I owe it to all of them, and so I wanted to, you know, hand it out to help other people come into Bitcoin and learn all these same things that I learned, and yeah, and then teach people in my own flair, my own way.
Definitely, man. And I love how you. I mean, so basically, the gist of your story was I don't know how long you worked at FedEx. Was that like a long term thing or?
It was like 4.5 years.
Oh yeah.
Um,
So I mean, this is such a classic sort of situation that a lot of us find ourselves in when we start the rabbit hole. Is that we have some sort of job where we're able to weave in podcasts into it, and this is one of the reasons why I think podcasts are so amazing, because like you said, you can just throw an earbud in, like your boss won't even see you, you can just kind of just learn as long as you're doing your work. Okay, most bosses don't care that you're throwing an earbud in and learning. I worked at Tesla for like
oh, nice.
2020 and 2021, and that is what, like, I was just delivering cars all over the Bay Area. I live down in California. Like I just went down there, just worked out of this dealership, and I was just driving these Teslas all over the place. And so I would just literally throw autopilot on and just kick back in my seat and just like cue up a podcast and just listen while watching the sunset out the window. It was like, it was perfect.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think who were the people I was listening to most. I'm sure Guy Swan was in there. I love Guy Swan. He's so good,
Mm-hmm.
and just he reads all the best articles for anyone who hasn't heard of him, who may be new. He basically just reads the best Bitcoin stuff, but he's amazing at just going off on his own rants as well. Like he's the best
Mm-hmm.
ranter in the game at the same time. So whether he's reading like the best stuff out there or he's giving his own takes, it's just like pure signal all the time. He like I can't name a single thing where I'm not just like completely lined up with him.
Yeah.
um
Same.
great stuff to listen to. And I remember just listening to sailor videos and all this stuff, and just over time just hitting the realization that like this is way more interesting than what I'm doing at this car dealership. Like I know a lot of people out there would say like Tesla's very interesting and being connected with Elon, this is interesting, but for me Bitcoin is just a whole different level. It's like I don't really care
Mm-hmm.
about this. Like I want to go learn about Bitcoin. I think this really changes the world in like such a profound way that I'm not doing here. And I'm such a principles driven person. Like as soon as I had that, I was like, I need to do something about this. So I literally just decided I'm going to move to Austin, Texas, where there's a ton of Bitcoiners, and find a Bitcoin job and go to Bitcoin meetups and just go all in on Bitcoin. So I just put in my 2 weeks. I'm like, I'm going to go move across the country. And that's what I did. And it was amazing. It all started with just throwing on some podcasts in my ear while doing
Mm-hmm.
my usual work. And there's so many people out there who, and I can't remember who I was talking. I think this was Mike Hobart I was talking about this with. You just see everywhere people have their headphones in, whether
Hmm.
they're like kids going to school or people at work or they're on their break or whatever. People always have their headphones on, they're listening to something, but you just know that they're listening to something most of the time that's not making them better, you know?
Hmm.
They're listening to some, stupid music or like the news or something that's just like brainwashing them. There's so little friction between what they're already doing and just this mind-blowing rabbit hole of changing their life by listening to podcasts about Bitcoin. And
Hmm.
I think you and I agree, like that's a topic that will take you through a whole journey of just changing who you are. And what do you think would be the way to help more people sort of follow that same path and just use their normal routine and just implement learning into it so they can like find this new world that's hiding right under their nose?
Yeah, well, I think podcasts and audiobooks are both really really valuable. I listened to the audiobook of the Bitcoin Standard in 2018, and that was actually where I first heard the term what's it called time preference. Uh, where for those listening who don't know, if you don't know, time preference is all about delayed gratification. So low time preference, you're delaying gratification. You think of it, time preference is also like now preference. How much do you want this now versus how much can you delay that gratification in order to uh, I, I guess maybe sacrifice or have some pain now for more gain later. The idea of like no, don't eat that the seed crop kind of thing. Don't eat that. Save those seeds for planting later. Or sure, the example I love is sure, you could go out there and try to fish with your hands. You're stuck on a desert island. You could go fish with your hands, or spend a day staying hungry, building a fishing rod or a net, and tomorrow you get to feast. That's that's kind of the idea of time preference. And before even learning about Bitcoin at all, it was or the idea of I don't want to say self improvement because there's a lot of garbage out there, self improvement workshops and podcasts and things like that. There's a lot of noise, I should say, a lot of noise, and there's some signal there, but I was always really interested in that and just improving the world, I guess, from the inside out. When I first learned about Bitcoin, so a little side note actually, when I first learned about Bitcoin, I just finished listening to the audiobook of The Creature from Jekyll Island. And it was literally 2 days after that when my boss at work, this pre FedEx, working at a local office here where we help people get ready for retirement. And my boss ran his own radio show, and so he said, yeah, just look up anything on like MarketWatch.com, Yahoo Finance, places like that, for anything I can comment on. And that's when I stumbled on something about Bitcoin. I had heard the word like a year and a half before then, was told it was a scam, and so that's all I thought for the previous year and a half. And so I stumbled on it again. This is summer of 2015. I was like, how's that on MarketWatch.com? Isn't that a scam? But I looked into it, and down the rabbit hole I went. Well, um, having just literally finished reading 2 days before then, The Creature from Jekyll Island, and I don't believe any kind of coincidences. I When I learned about Bitcoin and really went down that rabbit hole, I think if I had done it a year and a half before then, I probably wouldn't have gotten it. But when I did at that time, I saw Bitcoin as the solution of changing the world, fixing the world from the outside in. Get rid of the Fed, replace dollars with Bitcoin, something perfectly scarce and verifiably scarce, unlike gold, um, and something that can be transmitted anywhere around the world instantly, also unlike gold. Um, and what was it? One moment, trying to collect my thoughts again. Where I was going with that. But Oh yeah, and so fast forward a few years when I'm listening to the Bitcoin Standard and I learned about time preference. I suddenly see Bitcoin as a way of not only fixing the world from the outside in, but also simultaneously fixing the world through us from the inside out. Bitcoin fixes the world. Bitcoin fixes this because it first fixes us. It realigns all of our incentives. It realigns all of our time preference. It helps us to lower our time preference. It trains us in a way that it touches everything. Money touches everything in our lives, and um, yeah, and so as it teaches us to lower our time preference with everything, it just helps us to plan more for the future, do more work today for more play and enjoyment later. Because we should still play, we should still enjoy, we should still taste the fruits of our labors. Uh, but we shouldn't do that at the expense of, well, growing more fruits of our labors. And even way back, I'm gonna give away something a little private about me. I mean, it's not that private. I've tweeted about this and noted about it on Nostr as well. But I actually so okay, a little story about how I first started discovering my Ikigai. That's what I've all been trying to lead up to with all this. Um, I didn't know what I wanted to do through high school, and then I went to 1 year of college, 2 semesters of college, met my wife there, and that was definitely the best thing about it. But I didn't major or anything. I just took some general ed classes and had no idea what I wanted to do with my life, which I think is a pretty common story for a lot of people going to college. I didn't think so. I thought I was the oddball. I thought like everyone there knew what they wanted to do. It's so not true. But after those 2 semesters, I actually did some missionary work for my church. Yes, I grew up Mormon, and we're actually out to Fresno, California area. And early on in that, I was, doing things, riding bikes, knocking on doors, preaching to people and stuff. And when I saw real change happen in people, when I saw this kind of glow take hold of them as they got it. I saw the pieces kind of connect in their mind. And some things are specific to Mormonism, but which I'm not. I don't practice that now. It's another story for another time. but but still, seeing them, I still am a Christian, and so when I saw that light as they realized about Jesus Christ and everything, the joy they felt, and then the empathy I felt, like I was feeling that joy from them as well, and seeing them change their lives, seeing families get put together. I saw families on the brink of just divorce and just collapse, just come together, and children starting to be raised in good, healthy homes and stuff. And so I said to my companion, you always see Mormon missionaries, two of them together. So I said to my companion, I was like, oh, if I could do this kind of thing for the rest of my life, like I don't even need to be paid much. Just let me, go get married, have kids, and for my job, I'll come out here and do this every day, and just teach people about anything that helps them to better themselves. And even with Bitcoin here, I would still say, me personally, Jesus Christ is the number one thing that does that. When it comes to that, Bitcoin is the second best. But that's just me saying. Some Bitcoiners out there may be calling blasphemy right now. But uh, but yeah, I was like, if I could just have my basic necessities taken care of, I could do this for the rest of my life. I could just go teach people and help them to better their lives. And I don't mean like outside in ways; those are nice too. Like helping people to exercise better, eat better, and get more sunlight and things like that. But helping them with their truly internal self, their soul to grow and improve. Oh man, I get so much joy out of that. I can't even say. And so I didn't know it at the time. I didn't even know the word Ikigai at the time, but I was touching on that Ikigai just a little. But one thing I struggled with then and many years afterwards was, yeah, but how can I do that kind of thing and get paid for it? Like, fun fact for people who don't know this, Mormon missionaries, they pay their way. They don't get paid for it. They pay to go and do that. But yeah, so I was like, yeah, how can I do that and everything? And being a preacher or something, starting my own church, that was out of the question for a lot of like religious reasons and stuff at the time. But then, as time went on, I continued to dive into more things, like different books and stuff that were really good models for how to improve ourselves from the inside out. But they all, I guess, all of them I found had this one flaw, which was the practitioner, the person reading this book. Let's take 7 Habits for Highly Effective People or something. They'd have to read that and then just start using force to then make themselves get that habit, or make themselves improve in some certain way. There was no incentive, in other words. I mean, there was some incentive, but there was nothing real that was tangible in life. And so I I still didn't know over the years what I wanted to do. I got married, had kids. I didn't mention earlier, I actually have 6 kids. At the time I
Amazing.
decided,
That's
yeah,
so awesome. That needs to be the standard. We people need to start up in their game. I know that like it's such a stereotype that Bitcoiners are having tons of kids, but let's get those numbers up, man. 6 average would be amazing.
it's funny. Like I said earlier, I grew up Mormon, and I'm the third child of 6. My wife is the second child of 7, also grew up Mormon, and so growing up, whenever I'd say, "Oh yeah, I'm the third child of 6," people first thing people would ask me is, "Are you Mormon?" And they're like, "Yes." Now though, and I think into the future, especially I've seen a lot of Mormons today with nothing against people who have like 1 or 2 kids, but a lot of them just choosing that trend has kind of gone away. But I anticipate that in the future, people say, "Oh yeah, I'm one of 6 kids," and people say, "Are you a Bitcoiner?"
Yes, I love yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I talked about this, I think it was with Svetsiki too. It's just
Mm-hmm.
this idea that there's going to be this divergence of types of people in a huge way, you know. The like he says it's going to like Bitcoiners are going to be a whole different species basically because you know, we've gone through this process of just changing our minds and changing the way that we view the future and being optimistic and wanting to like really have low time preference, build an amazing future for generations, next thousands of years, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the other side of people who just continue plugging into their corporate media box every night and eating the soy slop, Bill Gates food, and you know, just like doing all these NPC actions that are there's a lot of force out there pushing people in that direction. So
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, like there will be a large percentage of people there. We can try as best we can to grow the side that's going to thrive and you know have many beautiful babies and get super healthy, eat tons of steak and work out and you know live happily ever after with you know a bunch of beautiful people around us in the Citadel.
Mm-hmm.
But it's impossible to get everyone. And do you see that as well? There's really going to be just a splitting off because the more I hear about that and think about it, the more it sounds pretty accurate.
Yeah. I was, I don't want to say obsessed, but borderline obsessed sometimes with trying to convince people of different things. If there's, you've heard of the comic XKCD,
Yeah,
like
I
that.
have.
Yeah,
Yeah, classic.
there's the one where the like the guy's wife comes in the room and she's, I forget what she says exactly. Like it's like, honey, it's 2 a.m. You should come to bed. And he's typing furiously. He's like, no, there's someone wrong on the internet.
That
I.
has to be one of the most popular ones out there because it's so true and so many people, so many of us resonate with that. I'm the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I connect with something that I'm really passionate about and I see that the majority of the world is wrong about it, like that's when the obsession
Mm-hmm.
mode just switches on. And I feel like you're the same way.
Yeah, yeah, I've been the same way. I fall into that pit sometimes. Um, yeah, that's been a stumbling block a couple of times now and then. But I'm recognizing it, and it is a symptom of high time preference, of not realizing the as Fetsy would call it, the remnant. To say, hey, this person isn't part of the remnant. They're not who I'm looking for. I should move on to something else. And as a missionary, I didn't understand that. And then afterwards, talking to my parents who I thought were wrong about different things. So it could be political things or like world event things. Um, I'm still the only member of my 6 children family who has any Bitcoin. My wife is the only member of her 7 children family, like her siblings, her 6 siblings, that has any Bitcoin. Um, and we were the only ones homeschooling until recently when one of her sisters decided to start turning to my wife and saying, hey, so what resources would you recommend for homeschooling? And
She must have
so,
loved that.
oh,
Was that like
yes,
really
yes.
great for her?
Yeah.
Cool.
But homeschooling, and I want to be careful with this next word because this is going on YouTube, but pokes, let's say. um, and then yeah, there's a lot of terms for people use that for, so I don't want to throw off any algorithm with that. But I went down that rabbit hole a little after my second son was born. Um, face coverings a couple years ago or a few years ago. We were against the mainstream for a lot of these things, and the times I just wanted to like grab someone by the shoulders and shake them back and forth, and just I guess and force feed red pills to people, but you can't. You can't force feed a red pill. The moment you do, it kind of becomes a blue pill. They get more entrenched in what they were already thinking. They don't see
Is it
you as
crazy how that works? Like
yeah,
when the more you try to help certain people, the more that they just despise you for it and go even deeper.
yeah,
And
yeah.
there's so many examples of this. And this is, I think, just a testament to how effective the propaganda is, where it gets
Hmm.
people, it doesn't just give people the wrong information, but it gives them this really thick confidence layer about it. Like,
Hmm.
because they've just heard these authority figures say it so many times that they are so confident. And whenever you come at them with the correct information, let's just call it that, they immediately come at it from a high ground perspective, like they are above you.
Hmm.
And so they start talking down on you like you're a little person for having this different view than the narrative. And it's really tough when people are at that level. You can't talk to them and change. And it's, I think you and I have a little bit different perspective of where we are. Like for me, I still try most of the time. When I see people who I love, I'm still gonna
Hmm.
probe and poke around and see if there's an opening there. But to me, it's just like my process has been just getting better at analyzing people to see if they are open minded to learning something new. Another one I'm
Hmm.
really big on is the carnivore diet and
Yeah.
just like food. you know, everyone thinks that meat is bad for you and fruits and vegetables are the best. And that's a classic one where they just have like, oh, of course, this is true. This is what I've been told since I was so small. And every expert in the world has told me this. And so, you know, it, you can tell, I've gotten to the point where I can tell pretty quickly if they just have a high confidence there and they're not even entertaining it, like it's not even worth the energy.
Hmm.
But certain people like are getting to a point, and this is true in all these different fields, Bitcoin as well, like with the money and inflation, where people are starting to get to a threshold where, you know, they're getting screwed so hard by either whether it be inflation or health problems from,
Hmm.
eating super plant based, which is always going to catch up with people, where the mind starts to crack open a little bit, if they're having problems with that methodology. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm sort of looking for. I try to figure out like, do they have some sort of health issues, and maybe that's where I can say, oh yeah, like did you know that plants contain toxins in nature? Like they evolved to chemically poison things that try to eat them, and maybe you
Yep.
shouldn't be eating that. And on the Bitcoin side, like, oh yeah, like did you know that? I basically break down inflation. Like this is why things are costing more money now. It's not because the house that's rotting under you is getting more valuable. It's that the money itself is getting less valuable, so it's getting harder to buy things, and just trying to find those openings. But
Hmm.
it is, I'm curious if maybe in 5 years I'll be like you and just be like, the people are going to figure it out. I'll just get tired of it, but I'm not sure. I'm kind of an evangelist at
Hmm.
my core.
Oh.
I love to just spread the message as best I can because I enjoy it, and I think that if you have thick skin and you don't get riled up or angry, and you're able to just back off when you can tell that they're not into it, then it's a sustainable lifestyle. Like for me personally, I don't know, depends on the person.
Yeah, and I'm still known by a lot of my friends, especially family, as being an evangelist. But yeah, I'm. So what I said earlier, I'm learning to be more like more like that. I've tried gauging people, and I even tried to create like a formula at one point. Like, okay, if someone's kind of like this, but with little bit of this and stuff, nothing's worked. Kind of formula like to kind of figure out preemptively, is this person ready? And there's no people are way too complex for that. Uh,
Yeah,
but
it's so hard to use math for humans, too complex.
yeah, yeah, and that's a very Keynesian way of looking at things. Anyway, trying to take these complex things and putting them into a very simple formula. Um, oh, there's something else that you said I was going to comment on, but now I've forgotten. Uh, but oh no, yeah, oh that's right, yeah, yeah. So about trying to convince people about things. Yeah, I think yeah, all you can do is really watch those pain points. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. Um, okay, I'm looking back on my years before I met my wife, and when I first dated, when I was kind of in the dating scene. And if someone comes off really desperate, really just like a big fan, and like, oh, I worship the ground you walk on and stuff, and please go out with me this Friday and stuff. The girls are gonna be like, what is wrong with you? I think if we're doing the same type of thing, or we can come off the same way. It's like um, that meme, the guy, with the board behind him, all the strings. I'm trying to remember what that's from. It's on tip of
Oh,
my tongue.
like he's going through, he's like going crazy, and yeah, the Charlie Day one or whatever it is.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, the Always
uh,
Sunny.
yeah. That's right. That's right. We said in Philadelphia. I saw one meme recently where it said like how I think I look when I'm telling someone about Bitcoin, and it shows Jesus there with his arms outstretched, and this is how I really look, and it shows that guy with the board there behind him.
Exactly,
And I think
exactly.
um, when we're explaining Bitcoin and forcing red pills or orange pills down people's throats when they're not asking for it, when they're not ready for it, we come off like that. We come off desperate, like a desperate guy trying to get a date. Um, and then when we try to tell them, no, 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 this isn't for my sake. This is for your sake. They're like, what? That doesn't fit the bill. That's not what I'm seeing here. Uh, and so, yeah, I think pulling back some, but always being ready to answer, and always being like to answer questions, or to touch on someone's pain point, where they're just like, oh man, so I was at the grocery store and it was like $300 for the same amount of groceries we always get. Like, what is going on? And you're like, you can be like, well, but again, you don't want to be too much.
Would you like how much time you got?
Yeah, there's a story that I heard growing up, a religious story. Growing up Mormon, there was, and I didn't mean to talk about Mormonism so much in this podcast, but there's a story that's often told of how not to be. So like a new person moves into to town, and his next door neighbor is a Mormon, and the no, I think it's, hang on, I think I got it backwards. Never mind. Some Mormon. That's right. It's a Mormon family that moves in, and his neighbor says, "Oh, hey, you're new to the neighborhood." And the Mormon guy says, "Yep, I am. Just moved here yesterday." And his neighbor says, "Oh, so where'd you come from?" And the Mormon guy puts his hand on his neighbor's shoulder and says, "Don't you want to know where we all come from?" And it's like, don't, like, where do we come from? Why are we here? Where are we go? His neighbor's just like backing up slowly. I think as Bitcoiners and Bitcoin evangelists, we can all come off that way. And my religious upbringing and practices definitely didn't help temper that at all. It only helped to encourage it in some ways. Uh, so
Yeah, that's what you call not doing a good job probing for that opening. It's like trying to force an opening where there isn't one,
yes,
being a little
yes,
too trigger happy.
yeah, yeah.
And something that you mentioned there that's so true also is that, when we talk to people, people are automatically sort of default to thinking that you are self-motivated, you're trying to help yourself. you
Mm-hmm.
know like the classic one is on Twitter when I am talking about Bitcoin to non-Bitcoiners. They're like, oh, you're just trying to pump your bags.
Mm-hmm.
You're just trying to make more money on Bitcoin by getting me to buy into it. And that's just ludicrous to
Mm-hmm.
think about. It's because but not really, because the fiat world really is like a zero sum game of everyone's just beating each other up to try to climb their way up the stupid ladder of
Yeah,
fiat money.
it has to be. Yeah.
And so that world is definitely one where everyone's going to act selfishly, and there isn't that connectedness between people like there is
Mm-hmm.
in Bitcoin. Because in Bitcoin, when we are trying to share this knowledge with people to teach them about inflation and the Federal Reserve and how sound money fixes so many problems that we see in inflation, not only does, well, first of all, like, we really do want to help them. Like,
Mm-hmm.
for any listeners that have a crazy uncle telling you about Bitcoin, it's because this is a true solution to a major problem. But at the same time, it does come back and helps everybody.
Mm-hmm.
It helps both, because it truly is this one big team where everyone that's in the Bitcoin team benefits from each other. And the good example is, every time we see Michael Saylor buying another bazillion dollars of Bitcoin, it's like, cool. I mean, I'll take it. Like, that is pumping my bags a little bit. Why not?
Mm-hmm.
This is just accelerating how quickly we will be financially free in the future. So it's cool when other people buy, but it's not the driving motivator.
Mm-hmm.
It really is about bringing the most people on the lifeboat, the life raft, as we can,
Yeah.
because we know that something bad is coming. And it's going to be a weird several years coming up here with things that are happening. Every single election cycle that goes by, we think, oh, this is going to be the one that everything explodes. There's no way they can kick this dead can again, and they
Mm-hmm.
keep doing it. We just had another election So once again, I'm saying I'm even more sure this time something's going to go down, but you never know. They have so many abilities to just delay the inevitable. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I think we could kind of take things over to the Ikigai itself. We mentioned that a couple times, but that is your main thing, and that is the primary topic I really love to talk about here because I think this is such a great framework for people of figuring out what their place in the world is, what their purpose is. Because
Mm-hmm.
we both talked about earlier how this is such a journey, it's such a struggle for so many people. And I know it definitely was for me. It took many, many years. And I'd say I'm still, I don't think you can ever say you've completely 100% found it. It's always sort of malleable and
Mm-hmm.
shifting and evolving. Like both of us just found Nostr within the last couple of years it was created. This is like an infant that was just came out of nowhere, and both of us now are very focused on Nostr. So
Mm-hmm.
it's always evolving. There's always new things coming into the picture, and you always want to be flexible. But I think most people feel like they aren't even on a path that feels like it's getting them closer to their purpose. They're on the fiat hamster wheel. It seems like they're stuck. They're not making progress in finding this. So, just from the super basic 101 level, could we just talk about, first of all, what is Ikigai? What's it made up of? And what's the 101 on that?
Okay. Yeah, basically Ikigai, like you said, is your purpose, your life mission. Different ways of putting it. There's one way that I've been told, and I read there's a book actually called Ikigai. There's some things in the book I really don't agree with, some vegetarianism, things like that. Uh, but
Gross. We don't
I
like that
know,
here.
right?
We'll give him a pass.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and that's the thing. Yeah, if you can mentally filter out the noise from the signal, there's some good signal in that book. Um, but oh, what was I saying? Oh yeah, yeah. So it's been described as kind of a four-way combination of what you're good at, what you love, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. Now that's not. It says there in the book that basically that's not exactly correct. But that is. Then it goes on to explain. I remember I was listening to the audiobook of it, going, but that's still a pretty good description of it. So it's not exactly right, but it's pretty good.
Not
Um,
correct based on like the exact Japanese translation, you mean?
Yeah, yeah. I think they're kind
Okay.
of coming in with as the actually meme, uh, and and it's like, well, but after they're actually what they described is actually pretty close to what.
Even if it's not perfect, it sounds great to me. Like it's
Yeah,
powerful. Yeah.
yeah. Um, so actually, one thing that and I funny thing actually, I just talked to one of my sons about this recently. So I mentioned earlier, 6 kids, 5 of them are boys, and the also fun fact, the first 5 are 10 between 10 and 17, and then the sixth turns 1 year old on January 2nd. So we thought we
Took a
were
little
done.
intermission period.
Yeah, yeah, we thought we were done after 5. Boy, 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 girl, and then then
That's
we're like, okay,
great.
good, we're done. Nope, one more boy. And let's see. Oh yeah, so I was talking to my third son, who's 14, about this recently, and I looked up a quote that was in a video that I listened to. Oh, decade and a half ago. I don't know, way back when I was still on Facebook. Um, and I looked it up just from based on some of the parts I remembered it, but I didn't remember who had said it. It's actually this quote, was not just quote, but like a recording from Alan Watts. Um, where he's talking about how people will come to him, young men, young women will come to him and say, what can I do with my life? I don't know what my mission in life should be. What is my purpose? What should I do for a career? Should I just get a job if it's digging trenches, just if it pays, just do something. Um, and his advice to them was, well, first he asked them, if money were no object, what would you do with your time, with your life? Now, some people, of course, will say like, "Oh, well, I play video games and stuff like that." It's like, okay, what would you continue to do? You're not going to do that for 20, 30, 40 years. Just play video games. At least I hope not. Um, but what would you do that gets your soul going? That scratches an itch in you. That one way, actually, I use this exact same analogy when talking with Valerie. When I mow the lawn at my house, I always take a look at it, like get a mental picture of it beforehand, and then I mow. And as I'm putting the lawnmower away, I look back over my shoulder. I love doing this, and I see the difference. And when I see that difference in anything I'm in, a person I'm talking to, um, a lawn I'm mowing, something I'm building. A couple weeks ago, so I have a forest out behind my backyard. It's still on my property, and years ago I built trails all through there. And a few weeks ago, it was covered in leaves. The trail was all covered in leaves. So I just got a rake. I don't have a leaf blower, amazingly, um, and I raked all the whole path of the leaves. It's good exercise, and it was cold out, and I ended up taking my coats off and stuff, all my layers off and stuff, and I was just going. And as I looked at it afterwards, I'm like, this looks like something off a postcard. Like it, like not to be tooting my own horn. I just loved how beautiful it looked and how different it looked. And so when I see that in people's lives, when I see that in landscaping, when I see that in a program that's been created or something, when Satlantis, for example, has a new update, and it's like, oh, this looks so much different, even if I didn't do the update because I don't do any of the programming. But I love seeing the contrast. I love seeing that difference. So that was something that, yeah, seeing that kind of difference in people and the world around me, that really scratched that itch. And so, what would I like to do if money were no object, or let's just say all your basic needs will always be taken care of. You'll always have food, you'll always have shelter, you'll always have enough clothes, and you'll also always be able to go and do some fun things, go on vacation now and then, and just relax when you want, when you need. What would you do with the rest of your time? And um, and the answer there should be a big clue to your ikigai. Now, if it is something really frivolous like video games or something, then maybe not. But maybe it is. Maybe there's something there. My dad designed computer games. I have a brother who is learning a lot of programming. My oldest son is learning a lot of programming. So like maybe you'll be able to use the gameplay experience to create something with really really good UX and UI and stuff, um, and so that you can still apply whatever gives you joy. Now, then if you go after it, and that's often how you find out that it actually doesn't bring you joy. It brought you fun. Maybe you were just really stressed, really overworked, and you finally get the chance to do this thing that you've wanted to do for so long, and you do it, and then it's done. And then you're like, you know what? That doesn't bring as much joy as I thought it was. It was nice. It was relaxing, but it doesn't bring me joy. It doesn't elevate me and make me just so excited to wake up in the morning. So then you have to do some more soul searching and some more exploring, some more digging and learning to find out maybe there's something else. Have you ever tried painting? Have you ever tried I don't know, there's lots of different um, talents, or there's a lot of other things, not just art based. Have you tried construction, building something? Have you tried starting your own business? Do you see a problem in the world that you can fix that you just now you need to put a whole team together to work on? The options don't end. And this is actually, side note, this is what I always think of when people talk about, oh no, is AI going to take all of our jobs? Is AI going to AI and machines in general? And I'm thinking, if you're working a job that can be taken over by a machine, maybe you should consider finding something else to do. I'm sure maybe keep doing it for now, but yeah, start looking into something else, because it's difficult for that to be your ikigai. I mean, imagine if we lived in a world, what's it people call it? Not post scarcity. Is that what it's called? There's a term for it, post something.
I'm not exactly sure. Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's
I know what you're getting at. Though.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Where literally everything is provided for us. Everything is dirt cheap. Like at the value that a Satoshi is today would buy you like a house or something like that. It's like things are everything's provided for you at a snap of the fingers. A house, food, the newest line of clothing, anything you want. What would you do with your life then in that situation? And that might be our great grandchildren's situation. I don't know. But if people have high time preference, if people are looking at only the frivolous things in life, humanity's doomed in that situation. I mean, there'd be, I don't even want to think too much about what people will be doing with their time with that. But imagine the deep discussions, the philosophy, the getting to know each other. I mean, podcasts are a tip of the iceberg for that kind of lifestyle where everything's taken care of. Well, now everyone can get to know each other. Now everyone can create things that, like, oh, you can tell that's human created, that's human generated, not AI generated. The new statues of David that would be created, not just actual statues of human beings, but like architecture and stuff, um, and the ways we beautify the world. I mean, it's mind blowing. Just the things that humanity could do, and then we can move over to Mars and beautify that too, and Mars and Earth will be pretty much indistinguishable after maybe a few centuries or something of terraforming and hard work from people. Um, because there's always going to be that human aspect. Machines don't have an ikigai. They can't ever have an ikigai. But if we follow that passion, if we follow that main purpose that for why we're here, then we can always have joy, and there will always be more work to do. The work does not end, and that's a good thing. That's a feature, not bug. The work for all of us is always out there.
Definitely. There's so many great threads to pull on there. I love it. I would agree with the point that you were sort of alluding to. This is, I guess, the white pill version of the AI future that we're looking at. I mean, everyone has a different crazy opinion about what the future is going to look like with, super advanced computing just continuing to get better and better and better. There's going to be definitely downsides that we see. One of which is just it's well, I mean, I guess it depends on your perspective, but it's going to be so difficult to just tell what is real and what's not real anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Because as these videos and these sound recording things of people's voices that aren't actually them, things are going to get really weird in the next decade as people aren't used to this, and they will hear some made up AI recording of some prominent figure, and you're not going to know if it's real or not. And so
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be, like, I think, this really huge uh massive uptake in just the value of trust, because it's going to be really hard to know who to trust. So this is why I think people that are building up an influence now on places like Nostr will have a huge, much higher value in the future, because people will know that you're real and
Mm-hmm.
that you have that trust built up, that you're not going to be, part of this fake world, because a lot of people are going to be just using these AI tools to generate fake things everywhere. So that'll be really interesting to watch for sure. But at the same time, that one of the more positive sides of it, which I agree with you on, is that if something can be passed off to robots in the working sense, then it probably should be passed off to robots. Like, the classic example is just a cashier at McDonald's or something. That's not your ikigai. It shouldn't be
Mm-hmm.
the ikigai that we set for people of just pushing dollar bills back and forth, or making spreadsheets in a cubicle with fluorescent lights everywhere. That shouldn't be people's high point. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that us Bitcoiners, we really just have, and you mentioned architecture as well, the fiat architecture we see today, where everything is just a box,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
all the interior design is just like white in black, and there's no soul in anything anymore. And this is one of my favorite sort of memes to just push into the zeitgeist as much as I can, is just this comparison of several hundred years ago or even thousands of years ago architecture versus what we make now. Look at the
Mm-hmm.
pyramids. I mean, who knows how many thousands of years ago those were made, and all these different things are just like incredibly impressive. We still can't wrap our heads around it, and we're just making the things that we're making now is just a complete joke. And it just, to me, it makes me optimistic that this is what humans should be doing. So if we are able to defeat the fiat monster, which I think you would agree, if in a fiat world, AI is much more scary, because these
Mm-hmm.
corporations that obfuscate jobs like the McDonald's cashier, and they set up their kiosks everywhere, and all these jobs are taken away, and like self-driving cars, whatever happens with that, all the truck drivers will lose their jobs. In a
Mm-hmm.
fiat world, the corporations will just suck up all this extra money, and people will lose their jobs, and inflation will get worse, and no one really wins except for the very top.
Yep.
But in a Bitcoin world, like, where you know in a Bitcoin world, like, getting more efficient will reward everybody, because prices would actually go down, deflation wouldn't happen. So, like, what are your thoughts on that, just how we make sure that, I guess it could just be a comparison, like, what do you see as the fiat future of AI versus the Bitcoin standard future of AI? How do those compare, and why should we really care about this and look at this?
Yeah, the fiat future, like you said there, I completely agree that it's this I guess dog eat dog world out there. It's only a few the few parasites at the top. Once they've sucked everyone else dry, then they'll start to attack each other and leech off each other. And um, yeah, that versus a world where everyone's helping, all the boats on the water are helping the tide rise higher, and so the rising tide is lifting all the boats, and everyone benefits. I know it sounds like a utopia, kumbaya sort of thing, but no, I think there's a lot of merit to it. I think it's true, because that's the power of actual decentralization, like with Bitcoin and Nostr. And I'm glad you brought up Nostr earlier, because I think Nostr is going to play a huge role in this, being this identity layer for the internet. It's not just for what we've seen so far, for the most part, Amethyst and Primal and Damus and stuff. These Twitter clones, though those are great because that's a really simple way of communicating and just posting something out there for the whole world to see. Excuse me. But having this identity, I mean, I've been contacted several times by clear bots pretending to be Michael Saylor or other people. And okay, if it's someone saying, if someone who looks like Michael Saylor, calling themselves Michael Saylor, they say, "Hey there," in a chat. I'm like, no, you're not. But there was a time, I think it was Carla, like Carla and Walker, crypto couple. I've been in contact with them. I've met them in person and talked with both of them when I helped. I worked with them with writing a book, 21 Questions, which we might want to talk about later. But and so it wasn't inconceivable that she'd be reaching out to me. And so I just got a little hey or hey there or something like that several months ago from supposedly Carla. Well, I was able to, within like 2 seconds, check the NPub. Didn't have to check the entire thing. Just do the first few letters and numbers match up, and they didn't. Also, the fact that I was following Carla and the person who reached out to me, I was not following them. That was the first thing. Like, wait, did it just unfollow me by accident, or is this? Nope, this is not the same person. And I was able
And
to
we should
verify
say in
that
the
with your
future you
NPub.
won't even have to look at NPub at all. There will be easier ways that the clients like give you to verify. You know, there's going to be a little check mark there if you're following them, which a lot of them already
Mhm.
have that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes some of those kind of things can fail, but the underlying aspect of Nostr, of the cryptography and stuff, of the NSEC and the NPub, those public keys and private keys, yeah, I was able to verify with the NPub, and yeah, but I agree that I think in the future that will be made easier, made simpler. Um, and so I think, and I also hope that that's dissuading a lot of scammers from creating accounts and pretending to be somebody, um, and yeah, and then reaching out to them, because yeah, you can't fake the NPub. And so with that kind of identity layer, Nostr, I see it as, and I see Satlantis as well, being a Nostr client, um, being this bridge kind of from the digital world of the internet to the meat space world, the real world. And I'm thinking that's another Matrix reference in addition to the red pill. You know, welcome to the real world.
You can't
Um,
have too many Matrix references. It
no,
always
that's
works.
you're absolutely right. Yeah. Um, and oh, someday I want to welcome someone to my meetup with like someone I've talked to online, and as they walk into the meetup, and just say, "Welcome to the real world." Just I haven't done that yet, but no, I don't think I'll be able to do that. Not with a straight face, at least. Anyway, with Nostr and Satlantis and stuff, but just Nostr in general. If you meet someone in person, you're shaking their hand, you're looking them in the eye, and they say, "Yeah, here's my NPub," and they get that, you scan a QR code or something, and now you're following them. You know that NPub is them. And if someone else tries to fake them, no, you know that that other person's NPub is not the right NPub. This is. Uh, Now, if they, let's say it's someone you know about, you kind of follow, they're well known in the Bitcoin space, and they say, "Hey guys, I lost my NSEC. Here's my new NPub." Do you know? Well, no. You may have to lean on some other people who know, who met them in person. Say, "Yeah, I can verify this is definitely him." Um, and so then there's some other issues that come up with that. But the main point being, Nostr helps to connect us with the real people, and that's one of the things I love about Satlantis, is that it's built to get people off the screen and into meetups, into parties, conferences. Go to this restaurant that this other real person who actually lives there in that town recommended, um, and it's so to take it back to AI and stuff, and all, and the robots and stuff, I think that kind of verification of verifying not just cryptographically but also physically, nothing can really beat that. You can't. Okay, maybe not yet. Create a an in person, maybe not ever, an in person thing using AI. Sure, you can create like robots and stuff. But where I started to think, oh, maybe not yet, was if people start to willingly join some kind of matrixy type of virtual world where it's like, engaging all their senses and they completely think that they're actually shaking this person's hand. It's a total simulation. Barring something like that, when you actually get out into the real world and see real things and see real people and use the internet as a tool for information, not as a replacement for real interactions. Um, then well, nature and humanity can start to heal. So I was just thinking right there, like, even this podcast, even us talking like this, we're using the internet, we're using technology, which is great, but this is no substitute for us, for you and me someday meeting in person. And that'll be a great day when we can do that at some conference or meetup or something. Um, and I love that not just you and me, but Bitcoiners everywhere, and even people who aren't yet into Bitcoin. It gives me a lot of hope for humanity that people still look forward to that. They're not like, people aren't saying yet. Some people are, but most people aren't saying, "Why would I go to a meetup? I can just talk to you online." Totally simpler. Um, but there's still that value. People are still seeing that value in meet space, and as long as we have that, I think we have a defense against AI completely, well, again, matrixing everybody.
Yeah, and this is one of the most common misconceptions that the quote unquote normies have around like Bitcoiners and Nostr people and these weirdos that are obsessed with all this stuff that is technological and on the internet and in cyberspace. They think that, oh, we must just be like in our basement on a computer all day every day and like not want to talk to people. But it couldn't be
Though,
more opposite, you know.
because though, fun fact, I'm in my garage at the moment, which is basically the basement.
I'm in my family's little garden room with all the paint supplies
Oh,
everywhere.
nice.
Yeah. But yeah, it's
Continue.
this is something that I found so fascinating and so cool about the Bitcoin community is that we really are using this, and Nostr as well, and we'll dive into Satlantis for real in just a moment. But these are really tools that are made to actually remove this hyper technological uh, just obsession with computers out of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tool. Like, when there's so many people in Bitcoin who have the same dream of, I'm going to save my energy and my time and my wealth in this asset that gives me freedom so I can go get a homestead and get the heck out of here, and
Yeah.
move out of the city and get a daylight computer for reading books. But I don't want to be on a computer all the time. We're sort of using this period to sort of use technology to get us out of technology.
Mm-hmm.
It's fascinating that way. Is that sort of how you see it as well? Like, because I just find that so cool
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
optimistic for the future too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, technology should. I think it kind of always has leverage. So it should leverage our real life experiences. Now, in different things, like we can build roads and sewage lines and put up electric lines, so much faster than in days before. And we're building. Elon Musk is building rockets and stuff, and with all the different developments, they're always there to help real life get better. But yeah, I think over just maybe the last several decades, especially with social media, um, there's this phase that I think we all had to go through. I think in hindsight, humanity will look back at it and kind of like an adolescent going through, going through a phase that they have to go through and before they can reach adulthood. I think humanity also had to just go through this phase of getting sucked um, into the internet, kind of missing the forest for the trees. Um, and where's it going with that now? Yeah, but now we're beginning to mature, and humanity goes in cycles like this. Humans, individuals, and the whole world, the whole universe is filled with cycles, and so we all go through cycles like this where we'll miss the forest for the trees, and then we'll see the forest, and we'll really appreciate it, and we'll grow past that, and then there'll be a new forest that will be way too close to, and then we'll see, oh wow, there's more. And let's see, yeah, and so this is just the next phase of that, and I wonder actually how much that kind of cycle coincides with the four turnings cycle. So now we're getting to the point where these hard times, so over the last several decades, we've had a lot of weak people, weak men, and now we're getting to those hard times made by those weak men are now creating strong men, and little by little, with Bitcoin, with Nostr, and a lot of other tools available, and all, we're getting this change of focus, which is I believe the first few phases of strongmen creating good times. And so, oh, I hope that when my children are adults, and when they have their own children, and my grandchildren start growing up to adulthood, that it'll just be a kind of a no-brainer. You use the internet and stuff to make your real life better. Like, sure, you do that to communicate them. Oh, I'm going to the plaza right now. I'll meet you there in 10 minutes. That's what you use the internet for. And then you go meet the person and give them a hug. And then we'll start seeing people not, where's my phone? I was like, not staring at their phone all the time and just sucked into it, but occasionally glancing at it and, oh, okay, great, and then putting it down and moving on. We'll start seeing people walking around downtown cities and stuff, in different streets and stuff. People looking each other in the eye more. But yeah, like we were saying earlier, the prerequisite for this is lower time preference. Prerequisite for that is something like Bitcoin. So things like Bitcoin and Nostr are invaluable tools for making the world real again. I'm trying to think of what the acronym for that would be. Not
That was
just
going to be my
American.
next question. I'm curious how you would specifically like pitch those two things as actually being the tool that does bring people to that more connectedness. Because that's what I find so fascinating. This is something I love just chatting about with people.
Yeah, well, I think Bitcoin being that main force of lowering people's time preference, teaching them and training them in one way to lower their time preference, and this one way ends up connecting to basically everything else in their life, and so they lower their time preference in that as well. And there's some ways that Bitcoin helps with, that are really, I guess, there's like a one step there, not that far apart. If you're saving Bitcoin for a while, and maybe you have one child, maybe you have no children, and you're waiting till you could afford them, or till you think you can afford them, and now Bitcoin's gone up a whole bunch, and then you're like, you know what, I would like to have children, and we can, let's go ahead. Like, maybe it does that. Or maybe Bitcoin teaches you low time preference in so many ways. You hodling on really, and not selling during bear markets, and so then, yeah, then you want more children, or you realize, hang on, I don't need to wait until I can afford it. Like, what number would you do? Like, sure, you could try outlining, okay, how much would a child eat and stuff, and maybe you need a bigger house to house them. Okay, stuff like that makes sense to a certain extent. But I think humans, we tend to, I guess, not really put a solid number on that, because we get scared. We're like, well, okay, Bitcoin's at 100,000 right now, and maybe, we said earlier at 20,000. I'll wait until Bitcoin's at least 50,000, and then I got to 50,000. I'll wait until it's over 70,000, until it makes new all-time highs, and then it does. Now it's 100,000. I'm going to wait till it's 150,000, and we just keep on moving those goalposts. I think sometimes people tend to do that kind of thing, but if instead we let Bitcoin, I guess, change us so that we're not afraid, we're not fearing all the time. There's actually a religious angle that I like to think about with this, not specific religion, but general Christian, tying hodling with faith, actually. I mentioned earlier in this podcast, I mentioned C.S. Lewis. I'm a big fan of his, and there's a quote of his I really like. I don't know it verbatim, but he says basically that he's talking about faith at one point, and he says that faith, in the context that he's talking about it at that point, I love this context, and this is how I always think of it now, that faith is not just, I believe, or I think I can, but it is what he says. He says it's the art of holding on to the things your reason once told you was true, despite your changing moods. So, uh, in a Bitcoin context, you see Bitcoin just going up and up and up. Let's say someone's watching this now and they saw Bitcoin hit 6 figures, and so they're like, oh, okay, fine, I guess I'll get in. And then it dips down to like 93, 94 or something like that. Earlier, their reason told them before they got in, oh, this thing's going up in dollar terms. If I want more dollars, I should get Bitcoin. Like that was reasonable. They saw where it was going. Well, now it's dipping. It dips some. Is it still reasonable? Now, if they can hold on to their previous reason while their emotions are screaming "sell," then that really is, that mental muscle is faith. And so, in the same sense as like so like in a religious sense, then if you believe in God, believe in Jesus, whatever, at one point when because you're sitting in church, you're reading the Bible or something, and then you get out there in real life, the rubber meets the road, and things are now tough, and you're tempted to do this thing or that thing. Are you going to hold on to what your reason once accepted, even though your mood has changed? And oh yeah, and so I think Bitcoin really does a great job of teaching faith, for lack of a better term. Well, the only better term I can think of is low time preference. I think low time preference and faith are very, very closely connected. And so when people get that greater faith, and not in a religious context necessarily, but it does oftentimes go into that as well. There are a lot of people who have found Bitcoin, and then through Bitcoin found God. There are other people who have not, and that's fine. But where was I going with that? Oh yeah, but that faith ends up helping people to that faith, that hodling, that low time preference helps people to then reorient their lives on those things that really matter, things that they knew deep down mattered, like they already knew mattered, like having kids, raising a good family, teaching your children really well, eating healthily, constantly learning, things like that. But they they were too scared to put into practice because while their reason would say at one point, but then life would happen and they would get too scared to actually do it. So that's a long way of saying that's how I think Bitcoin helps with that. And then Nostr, I said earlier about how Nostr is connected to our identity, but in a way that we control. We're not trusting someone else with it. And of course, people can create as many Nostr identities as they want, as many private keys. But when you
I may
are
or may not have a few that people don't even know about.
Oh, I have several, mostly just for fun. But let's see. But that's completely up to everyone. The one I do use, and I'm being perfectly honest here, the one I do use 95% of the time, at least, is my Jason Hodler's one. But because I'm building a reputation there, I want people to connect that account with me because they should, because that is me, because that's me doing. I am the one writing those things. And so when that can't be faked, then that can help to connect to the real person. And so then, that encouragement to then meet people in real life. And so I don't see this as I want to caveat this with just saying I don't see that this trend of Bitcoin and Nostr and stuff happening in the next decade or something. I don't see people getting to this point where they're only using the internet for stuff like that, and doom scrolling is totally a thing of the past. I do kind of agree somewhat with Svetsky that things like that more. Svetsky's talked about the 3 generations theory. I lean towards that. Yeah, I think all other fiat things, not just fiat money, but fiat education and fiat medicine, fiat religion, I did say education already. All kinds of fiat things will take a few generations to go away. But that also is assuming a big assumption that nothing major will change. That we won't have another 2020. That we won't have some other black swan event. So assuming that, then yeah, it would take a little while. Maybe there'd be some other black swan event that would either hasten or slow down that kind of progression to that future. But it doesn't help to worry about that at all. All we can do is focus on the now, focus on what we can do now, learn from the past, prepare for the future, and and just do our best in what we currently know.
Yeah, and I would also add to that. I mean, like you said, there are definitely black swan events coming that we can't predict right now because as the fiat system dies and goes out kicking and screaming. They still have the money printer right now,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not going to just go away softly. There's going to be some major chaos, I think,
Mm-hmm.
between now and the Bitcoin standard that we see in the future. And I would say the most important thing you can do knowing this is to build a really powerful network of people you trust and get on the Bitcoin standard so your money isn't tied to that mess. You
Mm-hmm.
have your sovereignty in your finances, your wealth, and your connectedness with your fellow humans that are, people like high quality individuals. I think that those are two extremely powerful things. And that's another reason why Bitcoin and Nostr are so powerful, because they really check off those boxes for you. Those two things are, and this is why Bitcoin and Nostr are so powerful, because they can't be taken away from you. They're
Mm-hmm.
completely decentralized, and these are you're and this is why people go through this profound mental shift when they go through both of these rabbit holes. I would call Nostr a rabbit hole as much as Bitcoin is for people, because it's
For
such a
sure.
new crazy idea. And both of these things just change the way people act and the way that their whole mind is set up, because all of a sudden they have total freedom over something and total sovereignty, and that is like a really enlightening experience. So this is why we are so bullish on meetups, like you said. Just go talk to these people and you'll see it, you'll feel it.
Mm-hmm.
And as a story I brought in earlier, how when I went to Austin, Texas to go meet a bunch of Bitcoiners and work in a Bitcoin job and meet these people, similar to you, like that was a huge accelerator, just gasoline poured on the fire for me to just go all in on this thing and just like speed up my learning process, because I could see these people are like a very powerful different kind of person that I want to be more like. So it
Mm-hmm.
really carries you along and speeds up your journey.
Yeah, and with that, I'm glad you mentioned freedom there with Bitcoin and Nostr. Yeah, there's this unparalleled freedom. We all need to remember the other side of the coin, no pun intended, of freedom, which is responsibility. It's something that people don't usually like to talk about. There was another one of my favorite authors, Connor Boyack. He created the Tuttle Twins books that then the cartoons have been based on. Um, he actually he wrote a couple of books many years ago. He loves to tell this story uh, on his like podcasts and stuff. Where many years ago he wrote a book called Latter Day Liberty. Yeah, written mainly to Latter Day Saints, to Mormons. We call it Latter Day Liberty, and he said the books were just flying off the shelves. It was like not like a it was a I don't know, it was one of the best books he ever sold, and people couldn't stop buying it. He was just he raised the price and people would still buy it. So then, and he even said at the end, now this is the first book. I'm going to write a second book to this. And at least I think he said that at the end. Anyway, and so he wrote a companion book, the second one called Latter Day Responsibility. He could not give them away. he like no one came to buy it. No one bought it in person or online. I mean, maybe a few people now and then here and there, but he had to lower the price more and more and more. And it was the companion book. He made it very clear in the first one. This book is incomplete without the second book, Latter Day Responsibility. And yeah, I think freedom really is just the byproduct of responsibility, of taking responsibility. When we take responsibility, then then we become free. And Bitcoin and Nostr both have, with the whole private key setup, requires a lot of responsibility, and the fact that there's no one in charge, there's no one who can help you get your recover your private key in Bitcoin or Nostr if you lose it. And there's also no one to come in and say with Bitcoin, like, oh no, this terrorist or something is using Bitcoin. I mean, that'd be awful. Yeah, but technically they can, and they could use gold too. They also use oxygen. Like we have no power of keeping any of those things from them. Um, and
That's the inevitable like dark side of an open system that anyone can use.
it
You have to live with that.
Yeah, and I'm not even sure if I'd call it the dark side. It's just the side. It's just kind of a gray side. It just is reality. It's just the world we live in. And a lot of people have been pampered with this, like Facebook and pre-Elon Twitter, and even some now with Elon Twitter and other platforms, where there's this nanny to take care of them, to hold their hand, to help them reinstate their account if they lose their password, to shut down someone saying something that's hateful and hurtful, and
Which who decides that? Like
exactly,
you
yeah.
have to have some arbiter of truth. It's going to be
Yeah.
able to be bought out and manipulated, so it's never going to work.
Yeah. And imagine if all the people discussing things on Twitter were actually physically in a giant room together and tweets were just people speaking. Who would be there to silence anybody? Like you there wouldn't be anyone, like, if you were just talking regularly. So nature, the natural way of things is, for the kind of way that Nostr and Bitcoin work. They work along with nature rather than trying to superimpose some well, fiat, some decreed form of I don't. I was gonna say some form of nature. No, I want like an abomination, really, of a person or a group of people saying, "No, no, we dictate what you can use your money for. We dictate what you can say online." And no, that should never have been the case. Yes, people will use Bitcoin for bad things. Yes, people will use Nostr for bad things. Yes, people use Earth for bad things. Like, welcome to Earth, welcome to life. That's just like you should. That's just how it is, and everyone should act accordingly. Be careful who you connect with. Be careful what you say. Just like in real life, you don't leave your front door unlocked at night. The front door of your house unlocked. You lock it. That's just common sense. You walk away from your car. You lock it. You don't go to the worst area of town and have a picnic with your wife and 2-year-old daughter. Like, no, you don't do that. And so there's just common sense things like that because of all the pampering, all the online nanny state type things, people haven't been doing it. It's been this lost skill um, of knowing where to go, where not to go, what to say, what not to say, um, and just so then, yeah, it's been this loss of intelligence, I guess, when things happen online. That Bitcoin and Nostr are now forcing people to relearn, and that goes back to the whole weak men thing. And now, um, in order to interact with these things, in order to get the freedom that so many people crave, you have to then not be a weak man or woman anymore, and you can't, and or say that you're something else besides man or woman. That's another topic.
Yeah, and like, it forces you through that strengthening process, and that's
Mm-hmm.
inherently going to be uncomfortable,
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of people,
Yeah.
which is why, it's there. You can tell that weak people are less likely to understand or want to look into these things because they take that responsibility. And
Mm-hmm.
the weaker people in society, as we can see, they are, very universally supportive of more government, more like nanny state taking care of your problems and just printing free money for you and giving you handouts.
Mm-hmm.
Those people are not Bitcoiners, and you can tell that there's a different mindset of people who say, no, like all those things are like a facade, like very short term, pleasure. Like the stimulus checks are a perfect example where you could really see the divide between the people that think long term and the people that are just thinking like looking for pieces of candy,
Mm-hmm.
because when that $1,200 check showed up in the mail, like, people think, oh, like, oh, good, I got free money, like this is great.
Yep.
And the people that are actually, thinking long term for the future, more about reality, like what is actually the big picture of what's going on, they just print that money out of nothing. It's going to make inflation worse for everybody, and this is not a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we all received a little bit of money or currency units in our bank account, we were able to think a little bit bigger. And when that happened in 2020, I was still a sheep. Like I didn't figure this stuff out until like 2021. That's kind of when I started like thinking, oh, okay, like things are starting to get weird. That's why I went down a Bitcoin rabbit hole and started doing all that learning. But that's just one of bazillions of examples that are constantly being thrown at us now. It's
Yeah.
just a constant barrage. The second we wake up in the morning, every single thing happening around us is fiat. And at some point, one of those fiat things has to just push you over the edge and just think,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this seems a little weird. And there's so many opportunities for that, but it's just, you know, it's tough for some people to finally find something they can grab onto because the fiat has dragged them so low health wise and mentally and physically. They're stuck in this job that isn't getting them anywhere, like we talked about before. They don't have any extra bandwidth to think bigger because their world has been shrunk down so much by needing to run on a hamster wheel and barely be able to feed themselves and their family.
Mm-hmm.
So it's Bitcoin fixes it. That's what we're
Yep.
saying.
Yeah.
It's the like fixing the money fixes this stuff, and Nostr is this new challenger in the arena that is fixing another huge component of this, which is the ability to communicate without censorship and the ability to transact value with people, and it works so beautifully with Bitcoin. It's such a great combination. And I even hear some people saying things like Nostr is the new internet, like it's the
Mhm.
internet 2.0. Like, what do you think about that take? Is that too hyperbolic for you, or do you think that there's some truth to it?
I think there's some truth to it. I don't think it's the internet. Remember, the internet's built in layers. Um, and I do think it's inevitable before Twitter and Google and you name the website, you name the company, if they have a presence online. I think it's a matter of time before they incorporate Nostr. So Nostr is not a new layer kind of going on top of what already exists. It's being inserted underneath some other layers. Excuse me. Um, and yeah, as people start to see that the value that comes from that identity layer, the identity online. I mean, there's been talk about decentralized identities, DIDs, for a long time. I remember several years ago, Microsoft was trying to do something. I think they did, but I stopped paying attention to it because it didn't really matter. And the thing that is one thing I figured out early on about altcoins and crypto in general and stuff before Nostr came around was that there's what people refer to a lot of times with Bitcoin, with the Bitcoin's immaculate conception, with that if somebody out there tried to recreate Bitcoin, tried to create another Bitcoin doing all the same kind of things, they'd have to act against their own interests, their own incentives. And so what they'd have to do is start something, keep it public the whole time, never run it privately. Um, they'd have to do work for it. And this is all in a world where Bitcoin is already there, where they can take this technology and copy it, tweak a few things, and call it whatever coin. Let's just call it that for this, whatever coin. And they could do all that, but they'd be incentivized to cheat. But maybe they have some high morals and stuff, so they hold back and resist doing that. Well, at the very end of repeating all this, they'd have to have legitimately mined roughly 1 million of their coins, and then disappeared, and then never disappear and throw away or burn the private key. Completely destroy it, so they can never touch it, or maybe they don't burn it, and then they just choose to never touch it again. Either way, they never ever touch it, so they never benefit personally from what they just worked on. Um, Now, back then, when Satoshi did all that, there wasn't. I mean, there was work put into it, but it wasn't like this thing that everyone knew would work technologically. Yeah, it seemed like it could work technologically. There were a couple bugs, a couple times where Bitcoin had to stop, and then they had to fix it, and then start up again. But that was really early on. Um, and let's see. Oh yeah, and so if anyone started to even genuinely try to create something decentralized, a coin or something like Nostr, um, unless the situation is just right, well, basically, unless it's never been done before, then it can't be done again. Both things are a one-time thing only. So, like with Nostr, I mean, Microsoft was trying to create decentralized identities. Jack Dorsey was trying to create Blue Sky and trying to make that decentralized, and it always kind of boggled my mind why why these individuals, these centralized, very powerful entities, were trying to create something that they're going to try to put themselves out of business. Is that it? Because if it is going to be decentralized, they're going to completely let it go. But the thing I envision suddenly is that like someone trying to let something go, but it's sticking to their hand, and they're trying to shake their hand and it won't get off. What's the glue that's sticking it to them is their own incentives. And then was it Fiat Jaff created just a very basic programming for Nostr and open source it, just put it out there. He wasn't a big somebody, a big well-known leader of some corporation. In fact, I think he's still anonymous. At least I don't know who he is. So a bit like Satoshi, he's still involved with the project though. But then he open sourced it, just say, hey, let's see what other people have to say about this. And it got a lot of people's attention. This is why I personally believe that Jack Dorsey is honest, and that he really did want to make something decentralized with Blue Sky, but he hadn't yet realized that he was his own worst enemy. with making something decentralized, and so it was antithetical to what he was doing. And so he could never have done it, even if he had thought of exactly the same coding that Fiat Chaff did and made Nostr, because he's Jack Dorsey, because he was going to make this as a company and stuff. He was still coming from that frame. He wouldn't have ever been able to just let it go, open source it, just let it be a protocol for the community. It always would have been a platform. So I think it's the same kind of thing with Nostr here. That I know I've gone off on several different topics now, but yeah. So do I think it can replace the internet? I don't think it will ever replace. I think it will enhance the internet. It will just make everything else that exists on the internet run better in a more decentralized way, where everything that we do, everything that people do, like the users do on there, will be connected. And if we so choose, will connected to our npub. And if you're uncomfortable with that, using whatever website, whatever service, and you don't want that connected to your own npub, spin up another one and use that one instead. And so that whole decentralization, but really putting that responsibility in your hands, is so powerful. And so it's going to put the entire internet back into everyone's hands.
Speaking of cool Nostr apps that make cool things that make the internet better, you are a part of the Satlantis project. And I talked with our friend Alex Svetsky not too long ago. And I mean, that was what, even just like a handful of weeks ago, but I bet so much has changed since then. So I'd love to just bring that up for you. Like, tell us about how you got into Satlantis and maybe give us an overview of what this thing is, because I think that this is a super perfect example of just a really cool solution that's being built on Nostr that's going to
Mm-hmm.
completely change how people communicate and how we interact with the real world.
Yeah. So Satlantis, firstly, for those who don't know, and I know I've mentioned it earlier some, but is a super app for nomads and local communities, and just generally sovereign individuals all around. Um, it's a client built on top of Nostr, but it's not like another Twitter clone. It's actually if you were to compare how it looks to something that already exists, I'd say it looks very similar to TripAdvisor. Um, then when you go inside the cities, so you go to Satlantis.io, there's a list of a bunch of cities, and you open up any of those, and there on the front page there'll be a description about the city, a list of all the different members of the city, and below that a feed of different posts. When someone posts something on Nostr, if let's say they're using Primal, and they post something and say hashtag Chattanooga on there for my hometown, Chattanooga, Tennessee, that will show up on the Chattanooga, Tennessee page on Satlantis in the feed. So not everything shows up on Satlantis, but just those things that people hashtag. Oh yeah, it also needs an image, because the feed we built it to look a lot like Instagram. That's how the kind of Instagram feels. So it also needs an image, or at least a image with it. On the other hand, if someone is using Satlantis and they post something, no hashtags necessary, they go into their hometown and post something in the feed, it will then go out to everyone on Nostr. So if you're using Primal and someone posts something through Satlantis, you'll just see that in Primal, if you're following them, obviously. Then there's also different tabs for like events that are happening in each of the cities. These can be meetups, conferences, parties, anything at all. Then let's see. Oh, there's also the map there, the merchant map, which is pretty cool. We have a lot coming down the line for that. You want to say
While
something?
we talk about this, I figure I might as well share my screen and
Oh
pull it
yeah,
up. I just
definitely.
pulled it up in another tab, yeah. Or unless you have like a way that you like to show people, what do you think? Should I pull it up and just kind of play around with it, or do you want to?
Since my internet's a little spotty, how about you do it?
I'll do it. Let's do it. And you can see me using this as a relatively clueless user, as like we talked about. This is so new, and I haven't played with it as much as I should. But I mean, looks great right now. And it's funny. The first one on. Can you see my screen? Okay.
Yeah, you can see it.
So the first one on here is Buenos Aires, which is hilarious because that's actually one of the places I'm considering moving to next for my
Mm.
next adventure spot, because I am one of the nomads you speak of that's kind of just floating around trying to find cool places to go meet Bitcoiners and eat lots of steak. So I mean, the site
Yeah.
looks awesome.
Yeah.
This is
Up in the
just
top
super.
right, there's a drop down menu where you can change how it's sorted. So right now it's just
Oh, top
like
right, yeah, top
the top
picks,
picks, like most popular.
trending, high
Yeah.
score, highest price, lowest
Hmm.
price. There, and I mean, I'm sure that there's just massive plans for how much is going to be added here. But
Hmm.
so, like when you just click into one of these, you have your little bars right there, and this is what you're talking about. You got the scores, merchants, where merchants can like plug into this, and you can find all these places. Looks like they already have a bunch here. It's super cool.
Hmm.
Now,
Now,
are these all are these pulling from some other platform, or were these
we
added by other Nostr folks?
yes to both.
Both. Okay.
We pulled from several different other platforms. One being BTC Map, but not all those locations are ones that places that accept Bitcoin. Actually, if you click on Bitcoin accepted on the button there on the map,
Bitcoin accepted.
right
Oh,
there,
cool.
so it's
Oh,
only those
nice.
ones. All
Okay.
the others were ones that maybe they don't accept Bitcoin, but we looked for locations that are seed oil free. If you click
Oh,
on that
cool.
again, it will just turn it
Yes.
off. Or a place that offer a carnivore menu or
Yeah.
anything else
Give me
like
just
that.
a steak button. Where's a giant steak button for meat only? That's what I'm looking for.
Let's see. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You need to
That's
scroll
my
back a bit.
future
Yeah.
request.
Yeah.
Just a
Yeah.
big
There. Yeah.
meat
There is a way you
logo.
can look on there. We're always adding more features. So it's let's see. Yeah, I think you have to click on restaurants and cafes, and then you can start to narrow down the
Oh,
search from the
diet. There we
diet
go.
right there.
Vegan, vegetarian.
Oh,
No carnivore option. Bad.
maybe it's just
This
in
this
there
must change.
in Chiang Mai, Chiang Mai.
But this is so cool. Like it's very intuitive.
Yeah. Yep.
Like you said, you just kind of pick that and then you're good to go. And this is, I mean, there's so much potential for this. And that's only the food part. We got events up
Mm-hmm.
here where you look at the different types of events that you got
Mm-hmm.
coming up. I mean, that's let me go back actually and go to Buenos Aires, because here's this one here, right? Buenos
Yeah.
Aires, because this is the one I'm actually looking at. So you click on events. Looks like no events yet. Past events. Here we go.
Yeah.
Nostr Day, Bitcoin Bay meetup. So like this is I'm just thinking about how many, and you got the gallery here, you have the info, like you said, so much content here for really figuring out like what places would be good for you to go to, where will you fit in the best.
Yeah.
I'm just
Check out
thinking that
check out the
what's
scores
that
tab.
scores.
Scores. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. So this gives you a really good overview
amazing,
of what people who actually live there have rated different aspects of this city.
very cool.
In this case, Buenos Aires. Mm-hmm.
I could.
They're really
This is
good.
just going to swallow up so many other things, I think, like,
Mm-hmm.
because when I think about this, there are so many aspects in that currently have their different separate apps in different
Mm-hmm.
silos. And this is something we talk about a lot when we're talking about Nosters, how it's stupid that we have all these silos for like one
Mm-hmm.
for Instagram and one for YouTube, one for Twitter, one for Facebook. Like every single place you start from zero and you're under the control of a new leader.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when Nostr really brings all these things together and gives the developers opportunity to completely openly create these different solutions in a free market way. So like
Yeah.
Satlantis, all those things on there are different singular apps now. It's like Meetup combined with Nomad List, combined with Instagram, combined with I don't know, there's other like travel TripAdvisor, like you
Mm-hmm.
said. It
Mm-hmm.
brings it all together, and this is so freaking cool. It's not a platform where you use Satlantis and that's like its own silo. It's part of the Nostr ecosystem. So all the
Mm-hmm.
people you follow, when if you may have signed up on Primal, like you mentioned, which is the Twitter clone, you will have all the same followers on this client, and
Yeah.
so you will get to see which people are in these different places in your network. And oh, by the way, like zapping is a thing. Like all you people can
Mm-hmm.
send each other sats. You can, you know, it's like a built-in Venmo at the same time. Like there's so much awesomeness going on. It's just so exciting to me.
Yeah. And then this is actually one of the things that got Svetsky first thinking about making Satlantis in the earliest days of Satlantis, um, was realizing the power of Noster's social graph. So like you were talking about silos there, like yeah, you can log into something using like your Facebook login, your Twitter login, your Google login, something like that. But there's not just one login that you just use for everything. Not yet. Later on, that can be something that that maybe those different services can use to be less siloed. But on Satlantis, one thing that we're planning on doing, so at the merchants tab, um, right now we're all the ratings on there are 4.6, 4.7, whatever. Those are all just the Google ratings. We're planning on pulling more of those kinds of ratings in, but as users on the number of users on Satlantis increases and number of just people using Nostr in general increases, we're going to open that up to the users themselves to be able to rate those locations, kind of like on Google or on Yelp or something like that. But on those other websites where you can rate things, there's a lot of fake ratings. There's a lot of times where those businesses will pay for bots to give them 100 or 1,000 new votes for, of course, 5 stars, or they'll pay. There's even some services that will delete 1-star reviews for you if you run a business and all. But with Nostr, we can get around that. Yes, people can spin up 1,000 npubs if they want, but so what we plan to do on Satlantis is when you click on a business and you look at the reviews that are on top, the reviews that are being averaged into the overall 4.8 score or whatever, are from those you follow, or maybe those people who they follow. So the people who you follow, you probably follow them because you have similar interests. If there's someone you have no connection to, a real person, or maybe just a bot, or just a random npub someone spun up at some point, but you have no connections to them whatsoever, and they gave this place 1 star. Oh, this place is horrible because they had some anger
they're
issues.
Vegan and it was a carnivore restaurant. That's a good example. Like when there's some ideological reason, people just go in and say this place is bad, and it doesn't apply to you. It even makes you think it's better for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and so, but if you don't know that person, who they are, and you see that on like Yelp or something, well, that's another review to consider. But on Satlantis, when we start doing that, you won't see that review at all. It just won't be there. But all the people you follow and all the people they follow, those are the ones you're going to see. And so they all said it was 5 stars. Okay, one person said 4 stars, but it's like everyone said that. And so most likely you're going to love the place too. So it just makes the experience so much more relevant. Now, then there's me. I follow entirely different people. Let's pretend that I'm vegetarian. I'm not. I'm not strictly carnivore. I have been in the past, but I'm very, very high carnivore. But I indulge in a fruit now and then. Anyway, but let's pretend I'm vegan or something horrific like that. No, no offense to vegans out there. I have a good friend. I'm saying this because I have a good friend and coworker who's vegan. But I was gonna say there, lost my train of thought because of that. Oh yeah. So if I had totally different interest in you, I will see a completely different review set, and so you go there and you see overall 4.5 stars. I go there and I see 3.2 stars on there. And actually, we may do something different than stars, but that's another matter. But the equivalent of that. And so the idea is people will go to Satlantis and everyone will have a different experience. Sure, they'll still see the same cities on there, but when they go into those cities, different posts, different reviews on those locations on the merchant map, and even different events, things that they're only the kind of things that they're interested in. So that way, it's only ever things that they are that are relevant to them. Another thing, if it's all right for me to continue to go on about Satlantis some more,
super interesting.
Another thing that I'm really, really bullish about, well, it makes me bullish about Nostr, but also Satlantis specifically, is the login or the sign up sequence. I don't know actually if you could share your screen one more time so I can show you this.
Yeah, for sure. Let me throw it up.
If you log out, of
log
Satlantis.
Out?
Yeah.
Okay, let me Brave tab window. Okay. Go back to log out here. Log out,
yep.
And then sign in.
Yeah, or say create account.
Create account, okay.
So if you're creating an account and you know nothing about Nostr, let's say you're telling your grandma, hey, you should totally get on this website called Satlantis. You never mention Nostr to her ever. All she'll see is, oh, okay, just like most other websites, pretty much every other website, I just create a username, I put in my email address, which is only for, in case she loses her password, and I create a password. Done, that's it. If she does that, then on the back end, kind of in the background, there is a way she could find it and digging into it. But then she'd be able to find her NSEC. But it's kept away from her, kept siloed, kept away,
Hmm.
so that she doesn't have to worry about that kind of stuff. And we don't have access to it. Like we can't find it or anything, but that's why we took the email address so that if
Yeah.
she does forget her password, then we can still reinstate her account or get her back into her account. But if someone's already on Nostr, so if you're listening to this and you're already on Amethyst or Primal or Damus or whatever, um, then when you're on desktop, then you can click on sign up with extension. But you can first download an extension, something like Albi or keys.band is my personal
Yep.
favorite. Nothing against Albi, but um, yeah, and then sign in that way. If you're on your mobile phone, we are working on the mobile app. The mobile app does exist. It is out there. Um, but yeah, and see if you sign in
See
with
how
your
I just did.
extension,
So I have Albi.
you're just
So I just clicked
yeah,
sign in, and it's instant. So
yes, it's
I'm
so
good to
quick.
go.
It's like a single sign-on kind of thing, but you're not trusting any, and you're not trusting like some Google or something to sign you in. Trusting that they're not tracing all your activity and stuff.
Hmm.
Um, then what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, so if you're on mobile, you can go on the website. And when you click on sign in, there isn't like an extension you can use for mobile. Instead, there is a little place where you can paste your NSEC. But later, okay, and I'll explain something there about Seattle, why that's not coming up in
Yeah.
just a moment. But then if you get on the app, then yeah, you just need to sign in one time with your private key, or just create an account with create a username password, even if you don't know about Nostr, and then you're on there. And so we're seeing this as like those of us here at Satlantis, we're seeing Satlantis as kind of a sly roundabout way of purple pilling people, getting people onto Nostr, because as they make posts and they think, okay, yeah, this is just for people in my city, it's going on to everyone on Nostr. Now, not everyone's following them if they're brand new, but still, it is out there. It is available on the whole Nostr network. Now, a moment ago, you searched Seattle.
Hmm.
Um, we only have the cities on here where we have ambassadors. So
Okay, gotcha.
yeah, in order to get a city on here, we need at least one ambassador. Now, an ambassador is like a moderator of the city's page. They're a person who knows the city really well. They'd be able to tell you where the best restaurants are, the best hotels, where the bad areas of towns are. Don't take your kids there, and anything like that. Um, and they help us then to put together the merchant map, and they're just generally in charge of moderating
Yeah.
the page and keeping it active.
Okay.
So if anyone watching this is if you're looking for your city and it's not on there, there is no city too small that can't go on Satlantis. I have a friend actually who's an ambassador out in a little town in Arizona. It's a really really small town,
What's it called?
Kingman, Kingman, like King and Man,
Kingman.
Kingman, right there. Yep.
Love
And a
it.
friend of mine there, you'll see he's under people right there.
Oh
The
yeah.
one with the crown there is yeah, that's a good friend of mine. And he yeah, no, he's I got him on Nostr, and then I got him to be the ambassador here.
Cool.
But yeah, so he's in charge of this page. Hasn't done
And you got
much.
your feed down here too, and this is, I'm assuming, people will like tag their their pictures they post with this location, so you can sort of see what's happening there, right?
Yeah, if they're posting it from another Nostr client, then yeah, then they'll have to hashtag Kingman in this case, so hashtag Buenos Aires, and um, let's see, and then it'll pop up. I'm not sure what the story with this one is. Looks like this person probably posted it
Also,
elsewhere.
it's just a hashtag. That's it, and then it pulls
Yeah,
up.
hashtag Kingman
Interesting.
right there.
Cool.
Yep. And
This is
then
super cool. And
yeah,
this
or
is
they get
what
on
you actually do at the company, right? Like you are the ambassador guy. You help people become ambassadors.
yeah, I'm kind of the ambassador for all the ambassadors, called the
Okay.
ambassador concierge. So yeah, I work directly with the ambassadors, um, and help them get their city up and going. Help them add events. Help them add help them add things like the pictures, like the banner image up at the top, and just things like that. Just walk them through that whole process. The first process, well, actually, the very very first step. If anyone wants to be an ambassador, if you want to get your city listed on Satlantis, then yeah, we need an ambassador. Um, and the first step to that is actually just to reach out to me and say, hey, I want to
Cool.
be an ambassador of such and such city. I'll look into you. I'll look over your social media, see, okay, is this person legit or are they just a troll? And I mean, so far it's happened 0 times so far that where I've gotten to someone trolling or something. Everyone else has been legit. but yeah, yeah, just you just reach out to me, or if you go into any of these cities, go in and click on join there on Austin.
Join.
Then this pops up. You can join any of these cities as a follower or as a resident to tell people, hey, I live here, or go and click ambassador, and you'll see something pops up. So this whole
Ah, okay.
application process, where you can tell us why you think you'd be a great ambassador. You can do that for any city. It's not just saying
Cool.
you want to be an ambassador for Austin.
Any of the ones that's already established.
Yeah, go into any city, and if you want to be an ambassador for just any other city that anywhere in the world, you click on Austin and say, yeah, I want to be an ambassador for Nashville, Tennessee, which we actually need one. We don't have Nashville or Seattle, Washington, or something. Then you could,
Hmm.
and then you tell us what the best way to contact you is. But yeah, we don't have Nashville yet. During
Wow, that's
last
we
summer,
gotta get that one up there for sure.
yeah, in the lead up to the Bitcoin conference last summer, I was trying to get anyone, to be an ambassador in Nashville, but
None for
no one,
Las Vegas either.
volunteered. Hmm?
There's some big ones of, and so this brings up another question for me. So there are definitely some big cities that aren't there yet.
Hmm.
What would you say are there like any sort of incentives or perks or benefits for people being the ambassador for a place?
Not at the present moment. Right now, it is a volunteer kind of thing,
Okay.
but we're only asking people to. So when you first become an ambassador, so you reach out to me, and then I'll contact you back, reply, and say, okay, I'll send you a video that kind of gives you a rundown of everything that you'll need to do. The biggest thing you'll need to do is answer a survey where you give ratings out of 5 about your city, and that's what becomes the scores that we saw earlier in the scores tab. So we just need that from you in order to get your city instated onto Satlantis. Once we have
But I
that,
would
then
think real quick just to interject here, like
mhm,
I would say even if there's no, I mean obviously like payouts or whatever, just the fact that you are up here as the ambassador on the top of the page,
mhm,
and people can see like this is like you own this city in a Nostriverse, and
mhm,
at the very least, it's a growth hack because people can come find you, they'll follow you, they'll want to connect with you and help you, make this city thrive in Atlantis. So like at the very
yeah,
least, you get a little bit of recognition there at the top of the feed. So
absolutely, yeah,
everyone gets
uh,
something. Mhm.
yeah, and you
And I'm
stay
sure,
there at the
and
top.
there's endless like opportunities for things that could grow later. Like people might want to like start zapping those people to like run more events and just post more cool
Hmm.
stuff. So there definitely
Yeah,
would be perks to being an ambassador, even in the early days when things are still getting worked out.
yeah, and if anyone is planning on coming and visiting your city, then they'll see that, well, you're one of the ambassadors right there, a little crown symbol,
Hmm.
and so you're like a go-to person. So a lot of people will reach out to you or follow you. They know that you're a trusted resource because, yeah, you got a little crown right there.
Cool.
Um, Later though, yeah, we do have some perks. There's some stuff that's been posted there. Careful, there's been some stuff posted on Nostr where people will like not even on Atlantis or anything, and they'll do a hashtag for a city or something, and it'll show up. And there's been some not safe for work stuff. Let's just say that
This will improve as that social graph component comes in because I'm sure that
yes,
you'll get more. I mean, since it's so new, I'm assuming it's pretty wide open to everyone right now. But once this continues to grow and you build your community on here, build your connections, your social graph will be all you see eventually, and you
yes,
won't see any
yes,
of the other noise.
yeah, that is the plan. Yep, but first it
Cool.
needs to get built out more. Like more
Yep.
people need
Yep.
to start using it. But yeah, if there is any garbage that's posted there, that's one of the things that the ambassadors can do is clear that out. Um, and so a lot of times I'll reach out to them and do that, or I may just do it myself.
But
Um,
the incentives will
but
be much better for moderation here versus a place like Reddit or something because you
hmm
on Nostr you have a reputation. On Reddit
hmm
you're just some anon name and you can do whatever you want and there's no downside to just being heavy-handed. But here
hmm
you are that ambassador on here and people know who you are and there's benefits to being a good actor and being a good ambassador of the city because people
hmm
will know who you are. People can send you zaps when you do a good job, and all sorts of other possibilities for the future.
Yep. And then there's also the aspect of this is your hometown. If you're the ambassador
Yeah.
there, you're also a resident, and you should have some pride for your hometown and try to show it off in the best way possible. So that way, nomads or anyone coming want to come and visit for anything will decide they want to. We'll think, hey, this is a
Hmm.
pretty good place.
And there could even be like voting systems in the future for like, is this ambassador not doing a good job? Like, let's vote him out or something. I'm not even sure. if that's ever been in thought process. But it's
Mhm.
there will be solutions for all these things, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah. So far, there've just been times where someone said that they don't want to be an ambassador anymore, or there are two or three ambassadors, and one of them says, "Hey, the three of us talked, and so just one person doesn't want to, and I talk with them and make sure and so
Hmm.
yeah, there've been a couple of times like that, but nothing like an ambassador really like abusing things. If they are really like abusing the privilege of being an ambassador, putting up as a city image or something, putting something up on there that's not of the city and that's clearly just kind of try
Hmm.
to like make Satlantis bad or something, then yeah, that they would lose the privilege of being an ambassador. But um,
This is so
yeah,
cool.
so
I'm
mhm.
excited about this. I can't wait to play with it. So, where are we at in the journey here? Is this still? I mean, it's obviously super super early. Um,
Mhm.
but is
Extremely
would you
early.
say this is polished enough where people should just get in here and start, using this for traveling and just go all in and just play with it?
They can, but yeah, the features are very minimal right now, even with all the different things that we have. Um, we are, yeah, we're working on building out the mobile app. That's where um, a lot more features will be happening on there. Um, but the mobile app isn't quite ready yet. I mean, it's out, but it has some very very basic functionalities. Uh, so I'm trying to say our MVP isn't even fully out yet.
Hmm.
Um,
Super super early.
mhm.
But man, this already is looking exciting, and I want to start playing with this because I kind of mentioned that with Svetsky, and I didn't really dive into it yet. I told him I would, so I mean, I think 2025 is the year I start really playing with this because
Mhm.
I am the perfect target demographic. I love traveling around, nomading around, looking for places that fit my needs, which is lots of steak and sunshine.
Mhm.
So man, this is super cool. I can't wait to keep playing with this. And I'm really
Yeah.
excited to be able to talk to you guys who are building it because this is just an exciting time in general for all of us.
Yeah.
Just being part of this. Super cool. Super cool. Dang man, we're almost at 2 hours. That flew by.
Yes, it
That's
did.
crazy. This has been such an awesome conversation, man. One last thing I wrote down here is you mentioned your book. I want to make sure we get to give a shout out to
Yeah.
your book while we're at it. The 21 questions. Why don't you give us a little rundown on that? Why people should check that out?
Yeah. So 21 questions. I worked on that okay. So, and actually, this ties into Satlantis a little bit. Before working on Satlantis, I was still on the same team with Svetsky and others working on the Spirit of Satoshi, which we worked on a lot. Well, we stopped working on it about a year ago, leading up to it, almost a year ago, I guess. Anyway, the Spirit Satoshi, for those who haven't heard, it is an AI, like a large language model, like kind of like ChatGPT, but built on and trained on everything that has ever been said or written about Bitcoin. We're trying to make the ultimate Bitcoin expert, basically. So people could go to it and ask it any question about Bitcoin, about Austrian economics, and it would give the correct and a very thorough, good answer. Um, that went all right from a business perspective. I found out though it wasn't really viable as like a long term business. So we decided to open source it to the whole Bitcoin community. So it can be like you can see all the code, you can download it yourself, you can train it some more if you want. Going to the website is Hugging Face and just look for Spirit of Satoshi on there. Well, while we were working on that, um, I've done a lot of Bitcoin education, mostly at my meetup, and talking to people who are wrong on the internet, uh, and so after having done that a lot, and I've seen a lot of the same questions come up over and over and over with people in person, people online. Um, then I wasn't really surprised much when Spirit Satoshi was going and we were spreading the word about it, and those same questions were coming in over and over and over again. Um, and I was in charge of finding the people who were. I was supposed to collect like a bunch of Bitcoin maxis together. I ended up getting up to like 500 different people to come in and train the model on how to answer all these different questions. So while we were doing that, that's when I saw a lot of these different questions come in, and so my first thought was, yeah, what if since we're taking all this stuff, all these podcasts and books and stuff that have been written by or recorded by different people, well-known people in the Bitcoin space, what if we combined all that into a video where like a 21-minute long documentary where 21 different Bitcoiners, well-known Bitcoiners, Jacques Mozuko, Carla and Walker, Guy Swan, all these names that a lot of people have heard of, um, and we give them a different question, and they so 21 different questions get answered by 21 different Bitcoiners, each one in 1 minute. So the whole thing ends up being 21 minutes long. That was the initial plan. There are a few things that got in the way of that. Most especially, I first of all couldn't get a hold of 21 well-known Bitcoiners like that. Got up to like 16 or 17, um, who replied back to me and said they would be happy to help out with it. And secondly, and this kind of most importantly, there were some questions that just required more nuance, more in-depth answers that you could not do in 60 seconds. And so, for those reasons, I wasn't able to do the documentary, the mini documentary, but they had already, a bunch of these Bitcoiners had already sent in their answers, a written version of their answers to a lot of these top questions. So I started off, by the way, with a list of all the top questions asked by the Spirit of Satoshi and that I'd seen asked in my own experience. It was like 67 different questions, something like that. And then I narrowed them down. There are a few that are kind of repeats or kind of answered by, like one answer would answer both questions at the same time. So I was able to narrow it down more and more until I got to 21. 7 different questions in 3 different categories. General Bitcoin, 7 general Bitcoin questions, 7 general economics questions, and then 7 like pieces of FUD, basically misconceptions. And so those all put together making 21 questions. So anyway, back to what I was saying earlier, I had all these answers to a bunch of different questions from well-known Bitcoiners. And I realized, hang on, I have almost enough here for a book. So I decided to organize it together as a book. And instead of one question, one answer, I would have like question 1, what is Bitcoin? It starts off with like at the beginning of every chapter has a little blurb kind of explaining the question. This is why people ask this question a lot. Hey, you've probably heard about Bitcoin, but you don't know what it is. Well, then it goes into the answers, and it's simply Alexander Stetsky's answer, his answer. Natalie Brunel's answer, her answer. Knut van Holm's answer, his answer. And after several of these, at the end of every chapter, it then says the Spirit of Satoshi's answer. Because the Spirit of Satoshi is like the combination of all these people and all of us. One thing we like to say when we work on Spirit of Satoshi is just like the saying, as we go, we are all Satoshi. But with the Spirit of Satoshi language model, now Satoshi was all of us. And so it's kind of to showcase that, saying, see, his answer is kind of a combination, kind of the ultimate answer for these questions. And then after several of those, ending with Spirit Satoshi, it would then go to question 2, several different answers from different people, Spirit Satoshi, question 3, and so on, for all 21. Well, the initial reason for this book being written was to be basically a book you could just hand out, you just give away, let a friend or family member borrow. So when you're you want to orange pill them, you're trying to convince them to buy Bitcoin or something like that. A lot of people, I found, myself included, have questions about things. Like when we have questions, we don't really know what those questions are. We can't really articulate them and formulate them. But then once we see them, like, oh, hey, yeah, that one, question 3 there, I've wondered that. And then they can just skip chapters 1 and 2 and go to chapter 3 and read question 3. And so, so you don't need to read the book in like from front to back. You can just read it in any order at all. So it's supposed to be a tool to make orange pilling really, really stupidly easy. Just give the book to them, tell them to look through it in any order that they wish, whatever answers their questions, and then give it back maybe after they're done with it. And so that was the kind of the initial purpose. But then I discovered there was another benefit that was happening. So I like to think of it like that. That was just the tip of the iceberg. The main body of the iceberg underneath the surface was after people would read it and they would get orange pilled, and then they would there's a section at the end of the book called contributors, where each contributor, each of the like 16, 17 people I talked to, each gets a full page all about them. A bio, a picture, and ways that they can follow, that people can follow them, like their Twitter, their Nostr, their maybe their YouTube channel, anything like that. So some people, when they're reading it, and they read Knut Svanholm's answers, they read Alexander Svetsky's answers and stuff, and they're like, oh, those are good. And then they read, oh, I don't know, Natalie Brunell's answer, and her answers just speak to them. They're like, these make the most sense. I love these answers. They can then go to the back and look up her information and follow her on Twitter. Well, Twitter or Nostr or YouTube or whatever. Then as they learn more, let's say they've looked through all 21 of those questions, but now they have another question that's not in that book. I like to call it question 22 that they have. That excuse me. That's not covered in the book. Now they know who to go to. Or let's say there's a controversial thing that comes up in Bitcoin, and they've read 21 questions, and they really, really appreciate Guy Swan's answers. And some guy, Vitalik whatever, is saying something, like one thing online, but there's this other guy, Guy Swan, who's saying completely opposite. Who is this person who's just read 21 questions going to listen to more? Who are they going to see as more of an authority? And so they'll start seeing these people who they're basically they become familiar with these names. These names are now becoming household names. So they know, okay, this person's someone I can trust. I've read their answers to all these different questions, and I know they know what they're talking about. And even if it's a subconscious thing, even if it's like, oh, hang on, I know that name. I've seen it before. What was it? If they see that person's name online. And so I guess, yeah. So going back to the analogy of the iceberg, the bottom part of the iceberg really helps them to know who they can trust in the Bitcoin space when there's something new that they need to learn that wasn't covered in the book. So as they continue their journey down the rabbit hole, maybe there's something that they see online from somebody who's not in the book. Saifedean, unfortunately, is not anywhere in the book. Really wish he was. But let's say Saifedean says something, and Giacomo Zucco retweets it. Well, they know Giacomo. He's this person from the book, and so he builds that trust. And now they're like, oh, okay, and Giacomo seems to agree with this Saifedean person. So to just kind of connect people together like that in order to build greater trust and in the Bitcoin community and some of the biggest names in the Bitcoin space. So that's kind of the whole purpose of the first 21 questions book. So there's that one about Bitcoin. I am right now in the process, gradually. It's been a rough process with the holidays and stuff. But I'm in the process of writing not writing, but putting together a second one. This time, instead of being the 21 questions, top 21 questions about Bitcoin, it's going to be the top 21 questions about Nostr. So it'd be a great way of doing the same kind of thing. Hand someone this book, they get purple pilled, and they learn all these different names of people in the Bitcoin space, the Nostr space this time. A lot of Nostr power users and programmers and people who've created a lot of Nostr apps. So then they can be purple pilled and get on Nostr as well. And just like how you can read the book in any order, you can also read the Nostr book before the Bitcoin book. You don't have to read them in order at all. There's already a lot of people who have gotten onto Nostr and then gotten to Bitcoin through Nostr first. So that's the 21 Questions book. It is available on Amazon, paperback, hardcover, as well as Kindle and audiobook. Audiobook I know is available on Spotify. Oh, and one thing real quick about the audiobook that we did was I was actually able to get the voices of all the different people. So it says like Alexander Svetsky's answer. It says that in the narrator's voice, and then it goes into Alex Svetsky's actual voice, reading out his answer. Natalie Brunell, Walker and Carla, and so on and so forth, all reading their answers. So you actually hear it in their voices throughout it for the audiobook. So I thought that was kind of that can kind of make it fun and interesting to listen to.
Cool stuff, man. Really appreciate that overview. I do have so many freaking books on my list. I need to just take, this is one of my dreams, is to just go out, and I will find a good place on Satlantis to go do this, by the way. Somewhere out in just the Scandinavian wilderness, just get a stack of books and like a nice fireplace and just read all these and just, listen to the cackling fire in the background, go hiking every day, like just catch up on all of this stuff. There's so much out there that it's impossible to catch up on all of it. It's just getting even harder as more Bitcoiners come in, and now we have Nostr. Like, people are going to start writing books about this, and there's just so much to learn. It's a beautiful
Yes.
problem to have. I love
For
it.
the question I said earlier from Alan Watts, like if money were no object, what would you do with your time? Well, maybe that's a clue.
Yes.
What you do,
Yes.
yeah, hiking,
Yes.
reading, yeah, totally, right there with you.
Amazing, man. Why don't we wrap this up, my friend, with some final words on what the original goal of this rip was going to be about, just the Ikigai, you know. I think everything we talked about today sort of brings us back to that, and how we keep talking about how Bitcoin and Nostr help so many people, myself and you included, really
Mm-hmm.
find our Ikigai. So what would be your case for people who are looking for that greater purpose we touched on, and why they should learn more about Bitcoin and Nostr in finding that?
Well, if someone uses Bitcoin, it naturally teaches them responsibility. It teaches low time preference. Teaches people how to hodl, also known as faith, to people more of a faith background, um, and and all of those things are necessary ingredients to finding your purpose. If you're stuck in the everyday slog with things, and just on the treadmill all the time, you're never going to find your purpose. If you don't find the hope that is inherent in Bitcoin and Nostr, um, then yeah, you're going to be living to survive, not to live. And yeah, and so um, I think really embracing those technologies, but more importantly, embracing the responsibility that those technologies require you to have. When you embrace responsibility, you get freedom, and when you get freedom, that's when you start finding things like purpose and true joy. Um, and yeah, you'll be able to do things like read lots of books and hike, sure, but there'll be something else that's like that you. I guess that you'll never run out of finding joy in it. Not that I mean, maybe reading books and hiking, you'll never ever be able to do that enough, and you'll always find joy in that. But you'll find something else where you can bring value to other people, doing something to serve them. Maybe I don't know. You're out in the wilderness a lot, and you gain a lot of knowledge about nature and stuff. You end up being someone who can teach people wilderness survival and be able to help prepare people for some kind of emergency situation. I don't know. Brainstorming ideas here now, but there's a lot of different ideas, and so when you're not, it's amazing what the mind can come up with when you're not worried. And I should know I worry a lot, and in case any of the viewers have been wondering, I don't know if you've been wondering. I'm fine talking about this, but I have psoriasis. Is what the red splotches here are around my arms as well. And I've tried different diets and stuff. Carnivore helped a lot to get rid of it, but worrying that makes psoriasis explode on me. And yeah, and I worry a lot. It's something that I'm still working on not doing, and having more faith, having more of that hodl mentality, even through the bear markets of life, you know, um, and yeah, and so I think all those are different parts that play into finding that thing that you can do that brings joy to you and joy to others, that brings value, or value to you and others, um, that you would do even if money were no object, if you no longer needed money anymore. But yeah, but first, these underlying, these foundational things like personal responsibility and faith, hodling, need to be established first in your life, and then everything else follows after that. What's the quote from Jesus again? It's like the seek after the kingdom of God, and all these things. First, seek the kingdom of God, and all these things shall be added unto you. That's what he says. So yeah, like everything else after that just falls into place when you put first things first.
Beautifully said. Completely agree with all of that. It's such a wonderful journey we've been on and continue to go on. I feel like we're just getting started, and the best thing we can do right now is help more people find it. Maybe not by bashing them overhead with the Bitcoin standard like sometimes we like to do, but just giving people the seeds they need to help these new ideas bloom in their brains and find their own way. And Bitcoin and Nostr are such incredible ways to do that. And Satlantis as well is, it's at a smaller scale. It's like a client as part of the Nostr ecosystem, but like you were talking about earlier, just it's a great bridge for bringing people on. It don't even need to know they're part of this big nerdy Nostr thing. They're just could just be a small business that you want to help, get on a Bitcoin standard and just like start
Hmm.
accepting Bitcoin, so they're safe for the future. You really like their stake, so you want to make sure that they're good for the long haul. So you bring them on board and send them some good reviews, and all of a sudden, like all these other people in this community will find them, and as they travel to this
Hmm.
place, they'll be able to support the business, and it works together. It's a big There's a lot of room on this Bitcoin lifeboat, and Nostr helps bring it on board. Satlantis helps too, and super exciting times ahead, man. Where can people go follow you to continue following your projects and your work?
Well, you can follow me personally at Geekigai, so the geek and Ikigai together, so Geekigai. Um, I'm Geekigai on Twitter and Nostr and pretty much everywhere. Um, then you can follow Satlantis at on Twitter. It's at Join Satlantis, and
What's a
then Nostr.
Twitter? I've never
Hmm?
heard of it.
Oh,
What's Twitter?
oh,
I've never heard of
X.
it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a centralized old legacy platform. Uh,
Old news.
yes,
We're all
but
Nostr maxis here.
yeah, it is on Twitter mostly to try to drag people from Twitter onto Nostr. But
Which is the
uh,
only reason we still have accounts over there, by the way. Like I
basically,
literally
yeah,
just spam Nostr constantly.
I do find some entertainment on Twitter, but I don't mean that in a good way. I mean like watching train wrecks, watching uh, watching people say certain things and stuff, and just like oh man, Nostr is where I go for the signal. But when there's funny or otherwise entertaining noise that I'm feeling like getting, that's when I go to Twitter. But yeah, yeah, and so there's just Satlantis on Nostr. Yeah, let's see. You can also learn more about the 21 questions books if you go to the website 21questions.film. Remember, it was going to be a documentary at first, so I just kept it that way. So that's 21, the numbers 21 questions dot film.
Fantastic. I'll make sure to put all those in the show notes so people can find them. Jason Sellers, aka Geeky Guy, aka Ambassador of Ambassadors for
AKA Jason
Satlantis.
Hodlers. Yeah.
Yeah, you have so many nicknames.
I figured Sellers as a last name is not a good one for the Bitcoin space.
Exactly. I love it. Yeah, yeah. It's been such a great convo, man. Really appreciate you stopping by. Glad we could do this. There was so much covered here, and I look forward to continuing to follow along on Nostr, sending lots of zaps and playing with Satlantis. Going to be lots of fun, and we'll be in touch, my friend. See you later.
Absolutely. Yeah, and thanks for having me.